I want to pick up two comments that have been made here. The first is about a fellow called Mr. Dick. I can't remember what his first name is. Tony Dick, who left quite an irascible comment yesterday about Stepan Bandera and the Nazi insignia and so on. Chelsea Roberts says the MAGA left invariably cite Stepan Bandera, who declared an independent Ukrainian state as a Nazi. On doing so, the Nazis put him into a concentration camp from 1941 to 45. Yet again, the MAGA left never check, just accept Russian propaganda as holy script. It's a very confusing situation. As essentially, this is rather like the enemy of my enemy is my enemy, and Bandera simply assumed the Nazis would treat him as an ally because they both had an enemy in the Soviet state. And then Sam Kirkman, 3123, says, and we're talking about Michael Westwood's viral petition, and says this cannot be seen as a legitimate barometer of public views, no matter how much people try to spin it in context of the Brexit petition, ignoring the potentiality for foreign interference, bots reform voters on mailing lists, and any number of other ways this number could be inflated. The fact of the matter remains they are starting from an undemocratic standpoint. If the argument becomes, well, Labour need to listen to them because this is the electorate speaking, and remains to be seen if it really is that, then you allow any pressure group to hold democracy to ransom. If you can assume this petition is mostly made up of reform voters, Tory landlords, jilted left-wingers, single-issue protesters or foreigners trying to interfere, then they're no more a threat to governance than the people who didn't vote Labour in the first place. I don't care if reform voters don't like the government, because they are never going to. Same for everyone else. Well, you're partly right, of course. The problem is these petitions are put forward by the government system. It's a government-monitored website which insists that enough checks and balances are there to ensure that only proper voters are able to register their signature and to contribute to this petition. I'm entirely inclined to agree that it's a system which can be invaded by bots and by oddities from outside the UK. But as long as it's there, either it's going to be part of our democratic process, or it is simply pandering to people who want to protest. In which case, it's worse than useless. It's patronising. And in the same way that this petition demonstrates, when you start looking at it, it demonstrates the absurdity of the first past the post system, where a huge number of votes were cast for the opposition parties and a comparatively small number of votes were cast for the ruling Labour Party, which got a landslide number of seats. When you start looking at the numbers of votes cast, this is an absurdity. And if 6 million signatories were encouraging a debate to reverse the Brexit vote, or at least reconsider in invoking Article 50, then, and that was ignored, then in a way, what is the point of this effort, except it raises more questions than I think it solves. And I think both of those issues are important. Mega Capo says, I am wary of people that shout loud and offer no alternative. All this man wants is just chaos, or go back to when he perceived he was better off. I think the same can be said about people who want to reverse Brexit. I certainly think a better relationship with Europe must be something that we pursue. Now, whether that's by voting for rejoin EU, or whether that's putting pressure on the present government to restore our better working relationships with, or redefine, or reimagine, or rekindle our better working relationship with Europe, it is something that has to happen. Because we cannot have a frosty relationship with our nearest European partners and with our neighbour. That way is absurd. Anyway, thank you as ever for all your comments, and I read as many as I possibly can, and I respond to whatever I can. Thank you.